Hello again, Dave. We have another topic about the upcoming special convention. This time we want to clarify or reiterate some of the things we've already said about what's going to happen with the office of the bishop at the moment, if we choose to reunify, but then also looking ahead, because one of the major differences in the new constitution and canons would be the bishop election process as it's being proposed right now.
Yes, that's right.
So before we get to that new thing, just why don't you remind us exactly what's going to happen with the office of the bishop?
Right. So Bishop Matt Gunter, who's the sitting Bishop Diocesan of the Diocese of Fond du Lac, would become Bishop of the state of Wisconsin as soon as General Convention assents to our reunification vote, assuming that it goes forward. So in theory, then Bishop Gunter on around June 30th would become the bishop of the entire state of Wisconsin. And then he can serve in that role until he turns 72, and he's not committed to any particular amount of time between now and when he would retire. But he has said publicly that he wants to serve until he feels like the new diocese has a good footing underneath it.
So when that time comes and, Bishop Matt decides it's time to go do something else with his time and things seem to be on solid footing, what will kick off the next bishop election here?
When he calls for a successor, either because he intends to retire is the most likely way that would happen, then the standing committee would have jurisdiction over the search process, and that's given to them by Episcopal Church canons. And they would appoint a committee to elect a bishop, or a search committee, which is a very normal thing. That's not different in this diocese from any other diocese. And then that committee would have the responsibility of seeing a process through to an election.
So what's going to be different? So that's the same everywhere. And
That's the same. Yep.
when does it
But there are
start getting maybe different than if we have folks that have lived through other bishop elections here or in other dioceses? How's this going to be a little different?
the committee to elect, that's the same. And their first move in that process will be to create a diocesan profile, which is also a very normal thing to do. It would take stock of where we are as a diocese, kind of what gifts and opportunities we have, and what we might be looking for in the next bishop, sort of to give potential applicants or nominees some sense of who we think we're looking for. And then they would develop a process, a framework, if you will, for how we're going to take nominations or applications or both, and for kind of when various elections and consecrations and things are going to happen. And then where this starts to get different is they would take that framework then and submit it to convention, and convention would vote to approve it, which would give.
Just let me interrupt. So in a previous process, what might happen? Because that sounds still pretty regular. You'd have a committee that's kind of collecting nominations and names and things, and then
Yep.
So where's the right or left turn on?
It's having the entire body of convention approve that. In a previous process, you might have standing committee approve it. That would probably be the body, but this would allow the entire convention the right to discuss and debate the proposed framework, and to suggest and make changes to that framework before voting to adopt it at a diocesan convention.
Okay, so it gets to convention, and
Yep.
then what?
Right. So then, based on that process, the window would open to take names, and those might be by nomination or by application. But eventually, we would end up with a list of priests who have been nominated or applied for the position. For the sake of the video, we'll just pretend there's 30 on that list. It probably is going to be less, but we'll just say there's 30 names. And what will happen is those people will prepare some answers to various essay questions, and to submit some questions by video. And then either at a special convention or an annual convention of the diocese, we would have the responsibility to take that group of 30 names and vote them down to a proposed final slate of, we'll say, 3 to 8 names. We don't actually specify a number in the canons, and it would really be up to the committee to elect the bishop at that time how many names they're trying to get to. That would allow convention to be the body that would winnow those names from 30 down to, say, 3 to 8.
And then you get this slate winnowed down in what's the next step in the process then?
So we'd have those 3 to 8, and then they would undergo thorough background and reference checks to make sure that there's nothing in their background that suggests that they ought not be a bishop. And then once that process has happened, the committee to elect the bishop would publish the final slate, and that would include all of the people that had been voted on that successfully complete their background and reference checks. And then at another meeting of convention, so we're up to 3 now if you're keeping track at home, we would elect the bishop, one name from those 3 to 8.
And so I know folks are used to in the past having visits from the final slate. Would those still occur?
They would, and we've called those walkabouts at different times, but it's kind of the process where candidates and sometimes their spouses would come to around to various churches in the diocese and take questions and just sort of mingle and greet folks. That would all continue as usual with that final slate of people before the convention to elect.
So just as a point of clarification, the real difference here is we're going to get a slate, and the entire convention gets a chance to help in the winnowing process. There's not just a single search committee or standing committee or something. And then once we have the slate, we do many of the usual things, and we'd have a usual convention at which a bishop would be elected.
That's exactly right. Yeah, the convention to elect is real normal based on what's done elsewhere in the church. The sort of novel part, and it's not entirely novel, but the novel part is that all 30 of those who have applied would do some preparation and would put together some materials to help the members of convention get to know them a little bit. And then those members of convention would be able to vote them from 30 down to 3 to 8 names or so. And what that does is it makes that process much more democratic than it is sometimes seen to be, because it's a new diocese in some ways, a new reunified diocese. Certainly, we felt it was important to get as many voices in the process to give input as early in the process as possible. To be able to really try to discern together who God might be calling to be Bishop Matt's successor when the time comes, and thus the first bishop of the reunified Diocese of Wisconsin after Bishop Matt.
Well, thanks for your time today, Dave. If I don't see you before, I'll see you on the 4th of May.
Very good. Thank you, Don.
All right. Bye.
Bye.